sorry. I didn't know if you wanted handouts or anything, but
No, I
yeah.
don't. No,
Yeah.
this is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would have let you know.
All right. I figured,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I
you
did
know.
want to bring the ones you cleaned for me last time, and I unfortunately cleaned out my office, and no, so I don't know where I put anything. So
All
that's
right.
all right
Let me.
though. Oh yeah.
I'm just going to read a little bit. I don't know if I'll
Yes,
read the
do
whole thing.
it.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us with Jamie Rickard. She is, got to get those glasses on, a registered dietitian, nutritionist based in Durham, North Carolina. She runs a nutrition counseling private practice called Fork Nutrition Counseling, where she helps people navigate their nutrition-related health concerns, body image challenges. Jamie is also the head of nutrition of Vivo, okay, an online workout program for adults over 50 that focuses on strength, endurance, and cognitive clarity. Jamie has also worked for Duke's Center for Aging and Longevity Nutrition Lab as a research dietitian. Welcome her.
All right, let's see. Can y'all hear me? Okay. If at any point you can't hear me or it's like crazy loud, please say something. I want to make sure that I'm mic'd because I feel like I have important things to say, hopefully, but I definitely want you to hear what I have to say today. So thank you for having me. Thank you for coming to hear me talk about protein. We're going to talk about why it's really important and why, as our bodies age, that we might need a little bit more protein, but like how can we effectively get that in a day and what's the best way of doing it and blah, blah, blah. And what does the science say? So we're going to talk about the science. I'm going to back up for a second. So, yes, I live in Durham. I grew up in Michigan. You might hear that in my voice at some point.
Go
And then,
blue.
yeah, Pam and I worked together a bunch at the JCC. And so I just love doing anything with Pam. I think that y'all are really lucky to have her. So thank you for inviting me, Pam. Yeah. I have one child. He's 6 years old and is running me ragged. And he and my wife and my little dog Babka live just kind of 5 minutes down the street. So that's a little bit about us. Okay, so the first thing I am going to do is just give you a very brief overview of what you can expect to hear today, so that I don't like to leave things hidden. Never bury the joke, I feel like that's important because I'm always waiting to hear what people are going to say. We're going to talk about diet composition. What is your diet made up of in general? The changing needs of our bodies as they age. Diet and exercise combination, how it works the best, and how we can make that happen in our lives, and what the science says behind that. How you can eat protein throughout the day to really support your body. And then we'll talk about protein supplements because I feel like there's a lot of confusion and bad news and good news about it. And everybody's like, more protein. Protein's having, it's like she's having her glory day right now. And so even though it is a trend, let's talk about what the science says and the way that you can actually approach it that should be very helpful to your body. This is obviously not for everyone, and this is not a recommendation. I want everybody to start doing this today. I want you to consider the things that I have to say, talk with your providers, make sure that if you're going to change anything that you're doing that first, because everybody is so individual. We have similar bodies, but every body is magical in its own way. And so this is not me telling you what to do. This is just some general information. And then we will have time for questions and comments at the end. So when I say the diet composition, let me go back one more. When I say diet composition, what do people think of when I say that? Protein, fat, carbs. What was that? Fruits and vegetables. Dairy, yeah. So, yes. So, the main things that it's made up of. Our diet composition, when I think about it like what you are, and I think about what each meal is composed of so that we can get the right amount of things throughout the day without overloading ourselves at any point in the day. And so it's really important to get all of those macronutrients, the protein, the fat, and the carbohydrates, and to figure out a little bit of where that balance is. Carbohydrates have a terrible reputation, but the beauty of carbohydrates is that they give us energy and that our bodies are built to be able to use that energy and to use it effectively. That is the most efficient system in your body for having to be able to get energy out of food. Protein is very satiating. It helps to build our muscles. It helps to do a lot of things in our body. And it can definitely keep us full for longer because it takes a while for our body to undo protein. It's kind of like this complex puzzle that it has to do to be able to gain all the energy from it. And then fat is also a great source of protein. It also helps with satiation. What I mean by that is just satisfaction and feeling good at the end of your meal. So you want to have all of those components. Of course, there are going to be outliers. I'm sure somebody in this room has done or is doing a keto diet. I don't have anything to say about that. We're going to just talk about the most kind of well-rounded diet that we can have, and I'm not saying anything good or bad about it. So when we think about our meal compositions, our diet compositions, it changes through the bigger points of our lives, the milestones of our lives. Each decade is a little bit different, you know. We have a lot more energy, say in our 20s, and then in our 30s, our metabolism can change a bit, but we also start to lose our muscle mass. And it's like 3% or something like that in the beginning. And then it starts to increase. I'm going to go deeper into that. But usually we have less physical activity as we're aging. That is one contributor to lower muscle mass. The fat mass goes up in the sense of like our ratio is a little bit less lean tissue and a little bit more fatty tissue. And our sensory functions can become a little bit less, and why it's important to do balance techniques and practice. Our GI tract can change. Foods that might have been your friend forever might suddenly just really not be agreeing with you anymore. And also the way that it is absorbing nutrients can change. Fluid regulation. We get dehydrated easier. And it's less evident to ourselves. It's not always clear that it makes me thirsty even talking about it. It's not always clear that you're dehydrated. So it is important to be aware of the fluids that you're taking in throughout the day. Our liver functions can change a bit. Our hormones change a bit. And something called anabolic resistance, which is just basically your body is a little bit more resistant to building muscle and building strength with the muscle that you have. So we've got some challenges, and this kind of starts to happen more in the 60s and 70s and 80s. Let me show you a little bit about how that can kind of go down. So here we have, I'm jumping. You are. Here's your overview. I've got my laptop in front of me that's not connected to this program right here, so I can see what I'm doing. Okay. Goodness, you guys have an early view. Okay. So there's a big word up here, sarcopenia. Does anyone know what that means? Yeah. Losing too much muscle, not having enough muscle. It tends to happen more as we age. It can happen due to, it can be related to illness as well. But the sort of natural progression of sarcopenia, it's a big word that sounds like a big deal, but really it's like, this is how we're aging. This is how the body ages. So when you're in your 20s, 30s, you're losing that like 3% I mentioned. And then when you're in your 40s, you're going to start losing 10% of your body mass. You're going to start losing 15% as the decades go on. And so you can see this, the image is on the far left is that's supposed to be a little muscle tissue. And the black fibers are thick and they're strong, and there's many of them. And so it's not that you just start to lose your muscle, the muscle you have becomes weaker. And so it's a bigger challenge for your body to keep up and to keep those muscles strong. And so that kind of happens. And then there's a big jump at 40 and there's a bigger jump at 70. And what that kind of looks like is this weird picture I have on the right. I'm going to blow it up for you here. No, I'm not. There we go. This thing is really excited to move. Okay, so this is a picture of a cut through it's a CT scan of someone's thigh. And on the left side, you can see that the VL is very lean tissue, and the BF is the body fat, the little white marbling effect, if you will. And then as we're aging, what happens is that the marbling effect increases over time, which that's part of what the fat is infiltrating the muscle fibers, so it makes the fibers less effective. So it's kind of the why. I always like to know why things are happening and how, what's the mechanism of that happening. But the cool thing is you can do stuff to slow this down and to reverse it even quite often. To think deeper about why this actually matters, this image here shows us, this image here shows us how through life, usually you have the dark blue and the light blue is together at the beginning, and this pink bar that shows what's called the threshold of low physical performance is like still not a big deal. But you see, if you get lower, if your strength gets lower than that's the threshold of disability, and we don't want that. And so where those two lines diverge, the top one is somebody that is able to maintain their muscle mass. It could be genetics. Genetics are really a big part of this too. But it could also be, are they an active exerciser throughout their lives and a healthy eater or a well-balanced eater, like what we're talking about. So then that's the goal, right? So that you're always staying above that threshold of low physical performance so that you can be strong as you can be well into life. And you can see also when something changes in this person's life, and it could be an injury, it could be illness that starts to bring that down. If there's nothing done to mitigate it, it will continue to go down. And that's why this is serious. That's why I even care about talking about this stuff. And why for each of you do you care about strength? Why would each of you care? And this is sort of my vision of like what I want to be doing as I age. I want to be able to hike a bunch and be outside and that sort of thing. And we all have our why. So it's good to kind of reflect on that when you don't want to exercise or eat something healthy. Right? So you're like, oh yeah, right. Future me really wants to go on that hike in 3 months. And so I better make sure I continue to train for that. So how do we do it? What's the recipe for success? It's a combination of exercise and nutrition. So the amounts of protein and the timing that you are taking it into your body, and then also the exercise that you get, what type of exercise you get, and how often you get it, are all going to be working together to make you as strong as possible. Now, here's the thing that usually the dietitian won't say, is that this is from a trial that shows resistance training on the left, and you can see that this person is taking in protein. I'm just going to tell you, like, they're eating an adequate amount of protein at each of their meals that is feeding their body and feeding the muscles, and they're doing resistance training. Whereas the person on the right is eating adequate protein, not doing resistance training. And so that higher curve on the left side is showing you how much those two things together are really important. So it's very, very, very important to remember that coming out of this today, you're not going to start sprouting new muscles if you just increase your protein if you haven't been eating it. You really do need that combination and finding out what that means for you and your body and what's safe for you. I'm sure Pam has talked to a lot of you about that. But this is, I want to really reiterate, it's really the combination. It's that recipe. So resistance training plus the protein intake, the recommendation for this is around 20 to 40 grams of protein per meal. I'm going to tell you what that looks like in real food, don't worry. But you're also doing this like 2 to 4 times a day and evenly distributing the protein throughout the day. What the heck am I talking about? So this is a typical diet where most people will have a little bit of protein in the morning with their breakfast, maybe 10 grams. And then lunch, they're doing a little bit more, maybe 15 grams. So the 10 grams would look something like maybe like a small yogurt or an egg and a piece of toast. And then a lunch, the 15 grams would be like half a turkey sandwich. And then dinner is 65 grams. You're having a larger portion of protein, and you're having something around, this is probably like I want to say a 10-ounce steak, but I think my math is a little wrong there. But it's a bigger piece of meat, okay? So this person is getting that 20 to 40 grams every few hours that I want them to be getting, but they're skewing it all to the right. So this dotted line here on the 30 grams is showing when our body starts to make more muscle, when our body starts to synthesize the proteins in the muscles. And so if you can get 2 meals that have 30 grams of protein in, you're giving your body 2 chances to make more of these, make more protein, make more of everything, because proteins are involved in every system of the body. It's pretty amazing. So instead, I want you to think about it like this, where you're trying to evenly distribute that protein throughout the day. So 30 grams for breakfast, it's a little bit challenging. I'm not gonna lie. There's some really great easy options, but it's like definitely not a small bowl of cereal. And some of us might not be so hungry right in the morning. So there's ways to do this, and I'm gonna talk about it, and I'm gonna want your questions about like, well, what about this, you know? I don't like to eat until 11 o'clock. Great, that's your first meal that we're gonna count for that day. You just wanna spread it out 3 times a day for most people. If you are someone that has a much larger body, then you might need to do 4 times. It sort of depends on who you are and what your provider calculates for you, which is not me. And please, if anybody has a major question in the middle of this, like they're like, what the heck is this graph? Can you say that again? Stop me, but no, like, I don't want the long comments yet. I want your long comments at the end. All right, so where do we get this protein from? There's animal source protein, there's plant source proteins. So the most basic thing that you can think of is any kind of animal that has muscle. 4 ounces of that cooked is going to give you 28 grams of protein. This really not tasty looking piece of fake meat is about 3 ounces. So if you had one more slice here, that would be 4 ounces. It's not a massive amount. But it's still gonna be, it might be too much for some people. Some people might need to split this into like dinner 1 and dinner 2 kind of thing. So that's one of the ways to kind of, to do that. If you get full really easily. 3/4 cups of Greek yogurt is about 15 grams, depending on the brand. I don't know what they serve here, but did many of you eat breakfast in your apartments, in the place? Yeah, so you can buy some of these things. Each egg is 7 grams, and an ounce of cheese is 7 grams. So by putting different things together, you can kind of come up with the right combinations. Plant source proteins, we definitely want to have these in there too. And it's not just the protein that's important, right? There's a lot of fiber in these and a lot of nutrients overall. 1/2 cup of lentils would give you 9 grams of protein. 3 ounces of tempeh would give you 18 grams. I know a lot of people haven't tried tempeh, but it's really good. I'm so sorry, thank you. Okay, 1/2 cup of lentils, 9 grams. 3 ounces of tempeh, 18 grams. A cup of pea protein milk equals 8 grams. That's the closest really, that and soy milk are the closest to cow milk. And as far as the protein content, and then a cup of pasta is actually 8 grams of protein. I like to show that because pasta also is sad. No one wants to eat the pasta anymore. But there's nutrients there. Just because something isn't the most nutritious in every aspect of what it is doesn't mean it's not a good contributor to your diet. It's very economical. It mixes well with lots of things. And there are some decent protein, higher protein choices of pasta, like chickpea pasta. So we'll talk more about different options. But here's an example of a few meals that I'm gonna make sure I'm not completely going over. Okay, good. So here's a few meals that have 30 grams of protein in them. So all the way on the left, we've got a yogurt bowl. So you've got the Greek yogurt, but then you're also getting some protein from the almonds. You're not getting protein from the raspberries, but you're getting tons of nutrients that are going to benefit your body and your brain in a lot of ways, and it's more flavorful. And then the next one to the right, sheet pan shrimp fajitas. So basically, if you were to go into, what's the name of the main area that you eat in? Heartwood. You go into Heartwood and you get a portion of some kind of grilled meat that's about 4 ounces. And then maybe you have some pasta with that. We're doing soba noodles here, so that's a little fancier, but they do have soba noodles have a little bit of a different nutrition profile. And then you actually are getting some protein from that broccoli too. So that's a nice, well-balanced meal there. And then on the right, we're doing some pork medallions with sweet potatoes. I'd love to see some sort of green or other colored vegetable with that too to really fill that meal out. And below that, there's a breakfast burrito. So you're gonna get from that one, you're gonna get protein from the eggs, protein from the wrap, protein from the cheese, and protein from the beans. So it's a nice combination of all of those things. And then we've got some fajitas and a sheet pan chicken with teriyaki, which is sort of just like a repetition of what we're talking about. But you can see then this is not a drastic way to change the way that you're eating for a lot of people. For some people it might be, but you might already be hitting 30 grams of protein at more than one meal per day. And that's what I like to tell people is like, if you kind of, you look at, like, do a little tracking, like write down the main points of your meal for a couple of days and try to figure out, okay, I think I'm getting 10 grams of protein at breakfast, but I'm getting 30 grams at lunch and 30 grams at dinner. That's really great. If you can get in some breakfasts some days of the week that are 30 grams, then that's great. And if not, just remember that you're providing your body 2 times a day to help build muscle. So we're not looking for perfection here. It's not like if you don't do everything, you don't win. You can win. This is I call it my like quick reference guide to being able to pick out some proteins to figure out how to make combinations that would get you to 30. So I'm not going to go over everything on here, and then you all will be able to get this slide from Pam if anybody wants it. But it's a nice little reference for how can I eat. Let's see here. I'm going to get 2 to 3 grams of protein from every non-starchy vegetable that I eat for a half a cup cooked or a whole cup raw. Great. So you can already see where, like, if somebody's like, I can't eat 4 ounces of chicken at once, maybe you drop that down to 2 ounces and you build out with some vegetables and some legumes and that sort of thing. I want to move on to supplements for a little bit here because I feel like it's like there's so many questions about it. And I talk to a lot of people in my practice about what kind of protein they're eating, but a lot of people need to rely on supplements to get everything they need. People love collagen. People think that it is definitely going to like reverse a lot of aging and do a lot of things. There's some evidence that it can help with joint inflammation, some evidence that it can help with just with skin, with wrinkles, with kind of just the collagen and the thickness of your skin. And it may improve bone density. But the nice thing is that the dosage for that is around 5 to 10 grams of collagen. So has anybody bought the collagen that they sell at like Costco or any of the other places? Anybody just, you bought some collagen, great. So collagen can be, you can add a little bit of it to like your coffee or something. I know a lot of people like that sort of combination. You don't need to get a whole bunch of protein from this. It can count toward your total protein count, but it's lacking something really important for what we care about today, and that's your strength. So it doesn't have these things called branched chain amino acids, and these are the amino acids that are really important to being able to build muscle. Without those things, you're not going to be if you were only eating collagen or amino acids that are similar to what collagen provides, you wouldn't be getting as strong as you could be without it. And a lot of the products that are sold will say you should eat 20 to 30 grams of this, but the nice thing is, by looking at the research, we can see that, oh, you only really need 5 to 10 grams to gain some benefit. And if you are looking to use collagen for some of the benefits I mentioned, you have to be doing it for at least 3 months. It's like 3 to 6 months to have changes. But there are some changes, and some of those studies are actually independently done, and not just industry studies, so that's good. And then let's talk about protein powders. One, you do not need to get them if you don't want them. Okay, that's the first thing. There's a lot of them that taste really gross. They're in the news because they have heavy metals in them and other things that we don't want, too much sodium than what the label says, things like that. But let's say you're committed to this protein thing and you just can't get it in through food, and you're just feeling like, I just need a supplement, Jamie. I'd like to have a smoothie in the morning that includes protein powder. Well, I've got you covered, because the consumer labs and then a couple other independent third-party labs that test supplement products have tested and shown that that these are some options that don't have heavy metals in them, or at least like it has the legal amount. So the first one is the NutriCost grass-fed whey protein isolate. The nice thing about this review also, by the way, is that it takes into account how many pennies per gram of protein. So it's a really nice, it's like you don't have to buy the most expensive protein powder to be able to get something that's gonna help your body. So the NutriCost and the Gold Standard Whey. Why do we care about whey protein? It's the most bioavailable to our body. It's the easiest thing for our body to take in and use most effectively. And if that doesn't set well with you, you don't want to do dairy, that's okay. You can do, I pressed too dynamically. There are egg options. There are pea protein options. So the pea protein would be a vegan option. And then, so the pea protein is here again, because obviously I really like it. But this brand consistently always shows, the Now brand is really never showing that they are providing something that isn't advertised. Every time they're reviewed, it's been just consistently good for a long time. The Vega one is a plant-based one that is vegan, and the kind of troubling thing about the vegan powders is that they all have more heavy metals than the dairy-based ones. And that's just because the plants are growing in the soil that has heavy metals in it, and so that's just kind of part of it. But the Vega one, even though there's a little bit of cadmium in that one, it's not enough that it's supposed to hurt you. So that's as much as I can tell you about that one. And then a newer product that I haven't tasted yet, but I'm a really big fan of using hemp seeds to supplement your diet for a Whole Foods version of something that you can add for protein. This is a hemp protein powder, and it supposedly has a pretty mellow taste and like a little vegetal, but something that could be a really good option for somebody that can't do or doesn't want to do the other ones. And then the other thing I want to say is that any supplement that you buy, this is for protein powders, but like really any supplement you buy, there's not a lot of tight testing and regulation around any supplement that you purchase. So you want to make sure that you're buying only supplements from bottles that have a badge like one of these on there. It's a third-party lab that will test and report to the public what is actually in the supplement. And it can be really dangerous. People have had liver toxicity issues with certain supplements, and there's just a lot of, you have to be careful with supplements. They're not they're not innocuous. They're not neutral. Apparently, I just read yesterday that iron is the one that people take sort of willy-nilly without a doctor telling them to do, and then get very sick from it. So make sure if you're going to take some iron because you're feeling tired or whatever, that you don't do it until you talk to a provider, and make sure that if you are anemic, why you're anemic, let's figure it out, and what kind would be the best for you to take. So those are the details. All right. This is a little sample menu that I made for you guys, thinking like, what could they possibly be eating if they're going to eat every breakfast and lunch and dinner and snacks with the food provided here. So I don't know how accurate this is, but I think it's taking a stab that's close. So breakfast, you could have 3 scrambled eggs with some cheese and toast, and then have a turkey chili taco salad. So you're getting lots of vegetables in there. There's beans in there, pretty balanced meal, and then a chicken spaghetti marinara with some vegetables on the side, pumpkin seeds, and an apple. That provides 90 grams. This provides 90 grams of protein for the day, but it also provides 25 grams or more of fiber. Each of these days, I set the parameter so that it would show that you're getting the correct amount of fiber that you also are supposed to be getting. Because that seems to be one of the big things that when people start to up their protein, that fiber goes down. I mean, across the board in the United States, we're all like supposed to be eating like anywhere between 20 to 30 grams of fiber, and most people are getting like 10 to 15. So overall, it's just, we all could use more vegetables and whole grains and legumes and things like that in our diet. But yeah, so each of these days, so day 1, day 2, and day 3, you'll be able to see this easier when you get the email from Pam. But we're starting breakfast with a waffle and peanut butter and some milk. We're doing a bean burrito, and for lunch, and pork and broccoli and brown rice for dinner, cheese and some fruit for a snack. Cottage cheese is what I'm saying. And then the last day is a creamy banana oatmeal. I think that you'd be able to make this easily from what is served there, but obviously you could also be eating breakfast in your own place. White beans with brown rice and a cucumber dip. I really went bean heavy on the lunch, guys. Sorry, you don't have to do beans every day. This is just it's totally sample. And then we're doing fish with asparagus, lemon, and rice, and an English muffin with almond butter and apples to finish out the day. I want to see a show of hands. Does this feel like one? Raise your hand if you think this feels like a reasonable amount of food. Who thinks that? Okay. Raise your hand if you feel like this is not enough food. And raise your hand if you think it's too much food to be eating in a day. Okay. Yeah. So how would we adjust that? For my folks that have smaller stomach organs, get full faster, you might benefit from having a supplement like a protein powder. You can always make a smoothie with yogurt. You don't have to make it with protein powder. But this would be something that you could start with this as a skeleton and try it out and see how it feels first because we usually eat about 20% more than we think we do. According to all of the diet studies out there, it's people that just do a self-report. It's around 20% that they're wrong, and it's usually that direction. So 1, it might not be as much as you think it is. 2, maybe you cut that apple in half and you start with smaller portions of any of this. But the big thing is that I would love for you to try it if your provider said it was okay, and just see how you feel. Do you have more energy? Do you feel more satiated? Are you less grumpy with everyone around you? All of the signs. Are you having less headaches? Those are like secondary signs of hunger. So there could be some ways that you can improve your nutrition day to day. And so if you could take a stab at something like this just to see, it'd be really exciting to hear from anybody that does. You can email me and say, you told us garbage and I can't eat that much. Or this was great, I feel kind of better in X, Y, and Z ways. But the protein for sure will help support your muscle growth. You have to pair it with resistance exercise. But that, even if let's say you're going through a surgery and recovery time, it's still important to get that protein in afterwards because your body is using a lot of energy to heal. And so you want to be, even though you're not, pumping the iron and whatever, you still want to provide about this much protein because it will help your body with the healing process, which is very strenuous. All right. So I want to just open this up for questions and conversation. Mm-mm. Mm-hmm. You should be.
I was always proud of myself until this presentation, and now I think I'm
Yeah, let's build you back up.
suicide. So
Yeah. So we're going to build you back up. Yes, fruit is super important. Obviously, I can't cover every single thing that's important that for you to be eating, and we're focusing on the protein because it is one of the major changes that happens as we're aging. And the current recommendation is still a little bit lower than what we the scientists and public health people. I want to say that the recommendation, remember that that's just it's to keep people well, like, keep them not sick. And to be well, there are some nuances within that. So so this is the difference, is that it's 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. And that's the current recommendation, and we want people to be eating between 1 and 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. So that's a little different. And yes, you should be eating fruit because the fruit's a big part of your fiber. There is fruit in that sample a day, though. So, yeah, go ahead.
So I heard you speak a few years ago, and as a result of that lecture, I switched from almond milk in my cereal to soy milk. But my question is, which is better in terms of protein? Regular cow's milk, either lactose-free, and if dairy milk, cow's milk is better in terms of protein than soy milk, what about skim milk or 2% milk?
Good question. So, just to recap that, the question is, protein-wise, how much different is something like soy milk to dairy milk for their nutrition profiles? There's a little bit of a difference in the amino acid profiles, but they're pretty similar because soy is a whole complete protein, and so you are looking at a pretty comparable situation there. When you start changing the fat level of milk, then you're not taking any of the protein out, but we have to be honest that there's we call it the food matrix. Any whole food, once you start removing parts of it, there might be parts of it that we're missing, that we're not getting from it. I don't think there's any danger really in choosing skim milk or 2% instead of whole milk, but I think that that's just something to know, that it's not, skim milk isn't inherently better because it's skim milk. It just doesn't have fat. And so if you enjoy whole fat dairy and your doctor says, okay, it's fine, or, you're just doing your thing, there might be a way. Like, I personally find that 0% fat yogurt is really not tasty. It's very chalky. So even if you can get a little bit of fat in that, if that's the deciding factor of you being able to eat yogurt or not, then you should go with a little more fat. And the fat helps to be able to, for us to be able to process different nutrients too. There are a lot of minerals and vitamins that are fat soluble. So it's good to have some fat. Thanks.
Can you just comment on organic grass-fed beef bone protein powder? That does have the full amino acid complement.
Yeah, what do you want to know about it?
How it would compare to what you were discussing, and if that would be then a good protein source rather than the collagen.
It would be a good, are you saying comparable to collagen?
Not comparable, but just the protein amount.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be comparable in that collagen wouldn't give you the full amino acid pen.
But this one does. Yeah. So I would check whatever product you're buying. Let's say it checks out fine, it's been reviewed and it looks safe. And if it's providing that much protein and it's a full amino acid profile and all of that, then that seems like a really good source. And it may be better than some of the other sources that are more highly processed.
What are your thoughts on almond and oat milk? Because I can't do dairy at all, so that's what I depend on.
So almond and oat milk, they don't have much protein in them, but that doesn't mean they're not a great beverage or a great addition for your cereal. Just don't put it in your protein count, right? If you were trying to figure out, okay, how do I get to the level of protein that I'm trying to, the pea protein milk is the only other one besides soy milk that has a significant amount of protein in it. But if you enjoy the oat milk and the almond milk and it's better on your stomach, that sort of thing, keep doing it and figure out other ways to get your protein. Yeah, enjoy.
Hi, just to clarify, is it, so can you suffer muscle wasting from lowering your carbs and your fats? Or is it only from protein? Do we increase only our protein? Where do we keep our carbs and fats? And is there a connection, again, between muscle wasting and lowering carbs and fats or reducing them almost to nothing? You see where I'm getting with that?
Yeah, reducing the carbs to almost nothing consistently shows long term that it can cause more problems than be beneficial. There's a lot of good evidence, good research around that. What you want to be doing is balancing the meals, not as much as like lowering or increasing anything, because you're increasing the protein, but it's not by a whole lot. So maybe you'll lower that fat a little bit, maybe you'll lower the carbohydrates a little bit, but it's not in a significant way that it's going to like create ketosis or change the way that you're feeling a lot. And you have to kind of feel that out a little bit. So it's like maybe you start by taking a half a portion of rice instead of a full portion. And does that feel satiating to you? So yeah, you are going, if you're someone that's not eating any protein and you've got to eat some more of it, you will need to cut some things out. And it's usually, most people need to cut a little bit of the highly processed foods that are carbohydrates, and highly processed fats from like fried food creates inflammation in the body. That's going to have the fat and carbohydrates usually. So that's a place to make a change if you're eating a lot of that. But otherwise, you don't want to overly reduce your carbohydrates or your fat. Does that help at all? Thank you. No.
What was the question?
Like if you, I mean, it's not like maybe. So if you were to stop eating carbohydrates and fat and only ate protein, you probably would still be losing muscle mass. You need to have a full diet to be able to not experience that. But it's not gonna start that process or, make that process go faster the way it would if you stopped eating protein. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I think I either misunderstood your recommendations or perhaps I'm just math challenged. The latter may be true regardless of whether I misunderstood or not. I thought at first you were talking about recommending 30 grams of protein per meal, so roughly 90 to 100 grams a day. Mm-hmm. But then I understood you say you were looking at 1 to 1.2 grams per pound.
Per kilogram.
Oh, okay, thank you, that's it.
Yeah, good question. You will hear people recommend like 1 gram per pound. That's too much. And if you're eating a lot of protein, you're probably going to have some GI effects that aren't so great. You might have a lot of constipation. You might just get cramping, that kind of thing. But you don't need to overload. More is not going to give you more muscles. Like this is actually kind of a nice like dose response. We know around this amount is going to give you more muscle. More is not better.
guess mine's more of a comment. Whey protein, I just think of it as more pure, since it's a byproduct of making cheese, and if you have organic cows, hey, what's not to like? Whereas collagen, I think of slaughterhouses, I think of cows, and how safe is that? Whereas, you know, the cheese making process, the dairy, at least I like to believe it has a little more oversight. And plus whey protein has all the branched chains, amino acids to stimulate muscle, combined with resistance training.
Yes. Yeah, I feel like collagen is like you're really at the higher end of the high processed food spectrum of that supplement, of those types of supplements. Whereas something like whey protein, the least amount of, like, some of them are still very highly processed of the whey proteins, and they've added things, or like it's a combination of whey protein and casein protein, because some people are convinced that if you have whey protein that you'll get some fast muscles building, but then the casein will help to give you it's like longer for us to be able to digest it. So it's supposed to be like this long, slow acting protein. We don't need to worry about that. And that's even like for even athletes, like it's really not that proven. But the quality of the product is so important. So one, if you're getting something that is just whey and not the other combinations of things, and doesn't have like a lot of fake sugars added to it, that sort of thing. Yeah, if you can get something that's organic, grass-fed, and like lower processed, like that would be the ideal. And I think it's really cool that we can find ways to use a byproduct of something like, you know, we're making tons of Greek yogurt, we're making tons of cheese, and be able to like use that and have it be such a great thing for our health, I think is a pretty exciting thing in the food system overall.
I love ice cream. Talk to me about ice cream.
I will. It's got calcium. It's got dairy. Some of them have, you know, there's variable levels of added sugar. So if you can find the least amount of added sugar, or if you're trying to put on weight, you know, if you're having a hard time and you're trying to put on weight, say you might be sick or whatever, your thyroid's acting up, you know, in the hospital, we provide people milkshakes. That's like one of the things where we're like, you know, let's get them going. Let's get some more calories in this person. So I think that in the amount of joy that ice cream also can bring you, with some benefit of the calcium, it's not great to have a ton of ice cream and a ton of fat and a ton of sugar, but small amounts and the amount of joy and these little bits of nutrition that come with it, I think it's a win. But that's a personal thing. You know, there are definitely dietitians and healthcare providers that would disagree with me, but joy is such a part of food. Community is such a part of food. If you try to take that out, you're just not getting the whole nutrition picture, because people have to be able to share food, enjoy food together, and enjoy food. And it's not a good thing to ignore that anyway. Soapbox. Yeah.
My question revolves around, again, the quantity, because when you use your 1.2, if you're 120 pounds, that's only about 65 rather than 90. If you're 150, that's almost 90.
This is where it gets a little tricky.
So I think it's something to consider when everybody looks at those 30-30-30s, that it might not be for them.
Well, the dosage is still, so we encountered this when I was working at the Center for Longevity at Duke. I worked in a nutrition lab where we ran studies using this 1.2 grams per kilogram, but because we had a lot of folks that were smaller bodied, we tried to find what does the evidence say about this? And it's that 30 grams is actually that dose response level. So somebody that is smaller in stature and smaller in body, you should still at least get, let's say you've done the calculation and you're like, okay, it's only 65 grams. You should still get 1 or 2 meals that have that 30 grams of protein, because you'll stimulate that muscle. And so it's unfortunate because it's like you would want that switch to be able to be a lower switch for somebody in a smaller body, but it doesn't really work like that. And we're not in you can even go up to like 1.5, it's a range. So you could have somebody that's like, let's say I want somebody to do 1.2 grams and their total is 65 grams. I'll say, try to get between 65 and 75, like that can be a range that we can play with a little bit, but it's a really important point. Thank you.
Thank you for this talk. You have been very helpful giving us a number of ways that we can change what we do to increase protein and various nutritions we have to have in our body. My question is, what signs are they that we're out of whack as opposed to in whack?
Yeah.
When do we know that I've got to change, and when do I say, yeah, I think I'm doing okay? So,
some of the signs for not enough protein, of course, are similar to signs of illness. So fatigue, what was that? Frailty, yes. Increased headaches. It's funny because I even made a slide for this and I was like, nobody's gonna want to know that. And I threw it away. So I remember the fatigue is the biggest one. The frailty, brittle hair, brittle fingernails, that can be a sign. But that can be a sign of malnourishment in other ways too. So if you are having some of those signs, you should do a protein tally for a couple of days and see. But you could also, there's free apps out there like MyFitnessPal where you could track everything you're eating for like 3 days and they'll look at your whole nutrition and you could say, oh my gosh, I'm not eating any calcium. I'm not eating any of this or that. So that's also worth taking a look at some point.
Anybody else?
I've got a question right up here. The mic's coming to you.
My wife wants to know if my wife wants to know if walnuts count.
If say a little closer.
Are all nuts created equal?
In what way? I want you to ask more of this question. Yeah.
So, can you hear me? Okay.
A little closer.
Okay. So are all nuts created equal? Do they have the same amount of protein, more or less, or are there certain nuts that I should be eating?
Yeah.
To?
So there's similarities. I gotta say right now that I don't know all of the differences in the nuts, but I know that walnuts have produced the most consistent results in cognitive health. All of them are similar in the proteins, like the amount of protein, whereas like almonds have more fiber than some other nuts. Cashews are a really great way to add creaminess to soup if you can't do dairy or don't want to do dairy. There's like those different things. And then there's a lot of niacin in Brazil nuts too. So so I think variety is definitely what you want to do. But if it's cognitive that you're looking for, walnuts seem to have the best science or the most money to show the results.
Well, that's what I eat, so.
Good.
Guess I'm worth it. Also, can you talk about good carbs versus bad carbs?
Sure. Oof. Do you have more of that question?
No. I was going to ask how terrible it would be if that first slide describes your diet, where you have much less protein for breakfast and make it up at dinner. Is that just terrible, or is it?
Kinda. It's not great because also you're eating a very heavy meal at the end of the day. You might not be using all of that energy super effectively. Whereas if you eat more during the day, you tend to have more energy throughout the day. Unless you eat something like a big thing of chicken Alfredo for lunch and you get really sleepy, right? Like you still have to make choices that are going to feel good as far as kind of like lighter meals, not super rich meals. But it's better to space it's better in a lot of ways. Actually, it's better also for blood sugar to be spacing all of these things out. Your body just has a chance to process all of this stuff. And so if you instead load it all up at the end of the day, it can it can increase GI stuff that you have, like GERD and, different things like that. So it is better to shift those meals if you can. And the carbs, good. So one thing that I really like to say to people, and this gets a little into the like body image stuff, is like food is not a moral choice. Okay, you should not judge yourself or others on the choices that they make around food. And there's a lot of history, and there's just everybody's got a pretty complicated relationship with food. So what we think of as good carbs and bad carbs would be like something that has a lot of added sugar. It doesn't have any fiber, is going to be a carbohydrate that will spike your blood sugar. And when our blood sugar spikes, that means that our body has a harder time processing sugar. It can, if you are insulin resistant, then it can damage your blood vessels, right? It can contribute to creating, if you have diabetes or prediabetes, it could be creating inflammation. But even for somebody that doesn't have blood sugar issues, I would say it's still good to balance it, to try to balance it throughout the day. So let's say you want to have a lovely piece of cake with like your dinner or something. The best thing to do is to make sure you still have a well-rounded meal that has fiber in it, because then you're probably going to have, hopefully you'll be able to have a portion that feels good and not overly stuffing, but you can really enjoy it, and your blood sugar will not spike as much as if you just ate the cake, because all of those other things, the fiber and the protein and all of that that's in your food is going to slow that blood sugar. So it's not a spike, but it's more of a rolling hill, and that's what we want our bodies to go through. Does that help? Do you want to say something about good carbs? Carbs are good. They give you lots of energy. Carbohydrates are tied up with fiber. They live together a lot. And so you want to get a variety of carbohydrates coming into the body. You want to get I saw a nice farro salad on the salad bar today out there. So that's like an ancient grain, but it has a lot of good nutrition. It has a lot of good fiber. So making sure that you're getting that. Like sweet potatoes are really good carbohydrates. Even regular potatoes are really good. They also have a bad rap. You get the most of the nutrients from eating the skin, but it's good to include it. Yeah, what else? What other, do you have a favorite good carb? You are. Fruits and vegetables have carbs. Most of like the non-starchy vegetables are going to have like, not a lot, like 5 grams or so. And then fruit, every serving that's about the size of a baseball is going to give you 15 grams of carbohydrate. And that's sort of considered like one portion when we think about blood sugar. So that doesn't mean that you're only allowed to have one piece. Someone that is supposed to eat, 4 or 5 pieces of fruit in a day, they might eat two servings of fruit at one time. But somebody in a much smaller body with smaller carbohydrate needs probably only needs to have that one portion at a meal.
Anything else?
She lives for this.
Wrap it up a little bit.
She's like, look how many more steps I got, guys.
Thank you. I know this isn't good, but I do use artificial sweeteners to sweeten unflavored Greek yogurt, or sometimes in my coffee. How much damage am I doing?
Well, I don't know. Overall, the studies show that it's probably not real great, because a lot of the studies that we do have are actually industry funded, and even those studies, like, it doesn't look that great, right? But maybe you do a lot of other healthy things that balance it out. So you also have to take that big picture in perspective, right? Or like, I know people that will put packets upon packets into their coffee, and like, I think we're doing some damage here. It can mess with guts, with like your gut microbiome and that kind of stuff. Stevia might be a better choice, or monk fruit. Or 1 teaspoon of sugar is 4 grams of carbohydrate. So anything, if you look at like any cereal and it says added sugar, I always try to get people to get underneath 10 added grams of sugar per serving. It's actually really hard to do, but you can do that. So keeping the added sugar low, but also not going big on these fake sugars because they're really not showing a lot of benefit. And then, a new one will come into the food system, like erythritol, and then they're like, oh guys, it's totally giving you heart problems, and they're like, sorry about that again. So just be a little wary of some of the fun chemicals that are added to the food system.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jamie does do individual counseling, and I do have some of her business cards, and I would love to see her on campus a lot more. I also wanted to share, personally, I worked with her individually years ago, but everything that she has, that the app to use to put what you do eat daily and whatever is so helpful. Did anybody has the fear of muscle getting too big in our bodies? Thank you so much. We've learned. Yes. Who is going to take class tomorrow? Notice she said diet and exercise. We have it all, right? Anyway, thank you so much.